We're covering the globe. Jesus, where did he go now?
He disappeared, but I'm calling back.
Brought to you by Irish Rugby Tours, the Rugby Tour specialists. AFIA Sports Training, committed to developing the sporting potential of future players in the U.S., UK, and across the world. And Dub Pies, Down Under Pies. Stop by, say hi, and eat pie. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rugby Wrap-Up. Matt McCarthy at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 in New York City, talking rugby, and we have a dandy for you once again today. We have a full house in the studio. I have Mr. Steve Lewis, our co-host, the USA Rugby Congress member, the National Championship winning sevens coach, the NSCRO board member, and the most eligible bachelor in America over the age of 40 demographic in rugby. Is that accurate, Steve?
I'll accept that.
Okay, but I don't like to limit you to the over 40 category. I like to continue having you out there for everyone.
Proceed.
Yes.
Proceed.
To my left is the ex-Namibian international player, but also a pro player with Super Rugby, the top 14, and the Premiership, correct?
Yes.
Currently the forwards coach for about 75 teams here in the metropolitan area, including Rugby United New York, right?
This is the Rugby United forward coach, and I help out a couple other guys.
Kees Lensing, of course. And on the horn via Skype is Mr. Barry Herbert. Barry is a South African. He's played at the Hamilton's Rugby Club in South Africa, Cape Town. That's who you were with, which is the same club as the new Seattle Seawolves head coach Anton Moolman. Hamilton's is also right? And Hamilton's, if I'm not mistaken, is the oldest rugby club in South Africa, dating back to 67 BC.
That's correct, Matt. Great to be here. Thanks very much for having me on.
67 BC. That's just gone right over his head. It's actually 1875, right, Barry?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's right. 1875. It's still a long time, Matt, long before you and I.
Okay, you failed test number one, and that is to pay attention to the main host. Gentlemen, before we get into the Rugby Championship, wanted to talk briefly about the proposal for the new World Rugby League to satisfy the international test flaws that are out there. We've got a proposed 12-team or 12-nation tournament, fall and spring or autumn and summer, whatever you want to call it, on the international tours. 6 teams from the Southern Hemisphere, I believe they are Ireland, England, Wales, Scotland.
That's the Northern Hemisphere.
That's right. That's the Northern. I'm just, again, seeing if you guys are paying attention. Northern Hemisphere teams, Southern Hemisphere teams, and there might be a Tier 2 for promotion relegation. Stephen, what are your thoughts on this first?
I think the idea of more meaningful games is a good way forward. Basically, what it's doing is taking over the June or soon-to-be July test window and the November test window. What it is, though, is essentially money and media, and it's World Rugby trying to, make a few bob. As to the structure, I mean, if the 6 Northern Hemisphere teams are playing together, I mean, that's just the 6 nations. So that's not particularly exciting. But I think this is a good thing for emerging countries. Some of those towards the tail end of the 12, Tonga, Fiji, I can't remember on the exact rankings right now. And then potentially for Tier 2 countries, if there is a second division competition, they can move up. It's money for them. It's better games for them. So in that case, it's good. However, I don't see some of the home unions giving up. They're guaranteed. RFU makes 10 million a home game at Twickenham, 80,000 3 times in November. Are they going to walk away from 30 million, or will they have to be compensated to agree to this? So I think there's still some way to go. Good idea, good concept. Bat it around, see how it goes.
Yes, would Namibia be a Tier 2 promotion relegation team in the Southern Hemisphere setup?
I don't think at the moment we qualified yet for Tier 2.
Really?
I think we run about 23rd, 22nd. So we're not just up in the top 20s, but I think it all depends on what's happening this next year and a half. And at the World Cup, if we can get our first win at the World Cup, and it's going to be tough, definitely tough. But I think we're close. And for us as all, for Namibia as a team, if they can play a little bit more competitive games, and even then they will definitely get better. And that's the biggest challenge for the smaller countries. They need to play more competitive games. And hopefully this structure will give them opportunities.
Will you be dusting off the cleats?
Again?
Will you be dusting off the cleats for that setup?
Definitely not. I'm done with those things.
And we'll see about that. Barry, what's your take on all this as the Saffer living in Denver?
Well, Matt, anything that's going to go closer to bringing us to a global season, I think is going to be a good thing. This has been going on for many years now. They've been talking around trying to get people playing international rugby at the same time. The club versus country row is ongoing. It's not getting any better. So hopefully whatever they decide, whatever competition they decide on, will be, good for international rugby and club rugby as well around the world.
All right. Okay. I kind of like it. I like the fact that the U.S. can go in there and perhaps shake some things up. You got Russia and China, the big countries that'll likely be involved, and it gives them some more incentive to get better in their programs.
Yeah, but let's not be under any illusions here. This is World Rugby, and countries staking a claim for an extra competition. So that the coming schism in rugby will be between country and club. I actually don't think, Barry, that the clubs are going to be very happy about this.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so I think it's the countries, a World Rugby in particular, which really is an event company, right? It runs the Men's World Cup that makes, whatever it did, $300 million. It realizes it's got a reasonable property in the World Series of Sevens, and it's got nothing else. So this is a third comp for them, and it's all about money.
All right, but we're going to take a quick break, gentlemen, because we're out of time on this segment. But don't go away, folks, because we're coming back with the Rugby Championship chatter that these guys are just chomping at the bit to get at. We'll be right back after this.
Been blind since I was 4, and I've never seen a beer commercial or a beer label. None of that stuff influences me. I drink beer because of the taste, and my beer is Pabst Blue Ribbon. It has the taste and the flavor.
What do you think's on the label?
I think there's a naked woman riding on a unicorn, jumping over fire. Oh, that's good beer.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
Folks, this week's Rugby Wrap-Up Team of the Week is Kenmore up in Buffalo. Remember, if you're on the pitch, don't do less. Do Ken more. Hey, everybody, we're back at Rugby Wrap-Up at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34. And, gentlemen, we're talking the Rugby Championship. An interesting competition so far. New Zealand already clinched it, but we've got two very interesting matches left, I think. A shot for South Africa to find out about themselves. Are they for real? Do they have the wherewithal to come back and play another tough match after stealing that win down in New Zealand? And you've got Argentina with an opportunity to go 500 in the competition, which is a major accomplishment, I think.
It's good competition for them, to be sure. Sort of landmark wins against Australia and South Africa. Going 500 in that comp is certainly an achievement, and they seem to be steadying the ship and coming back. They got hammered in the summer. They had a couple of poor results. But they seem to be finding their way again, so it's been a good competition for Argentina.
Yes, you've played a lot in Super Rugby. You know the atmosphere down in South Africa. If they're going to win at home against New Zealand, what is it going to take?
No, I think it's going to be, again, 150% from every guy. And the execution of the game plan will have to be precision. And defense, defense will have to be spot on. And if you look at the trend for the last two games for South African games, they don't like to play too much ball in hand. They rather like to defend. I think, and through the defense, we kind of still show our physicality and this type of rugby that South Africans like to do, like dominant.
Yeah. Did you say we? Did you say we?
He's confused. Everything you get confused on this.
Yeah, maybe in South African.
Yeah.
But in defense.
Yeah, so
right?
Because old South African rugby was forward dominated, crash ball, and strong power rugby. And I think now with what's happening in the last two games against New Zealand, giving us the win, unexpected win, I would say, and then against Australia, that was again through defense, hard physical rugby, and it get good results for them. So I don't think they will back off of that immediately. I think they're going to try and build on that and make that maybe their type of play to go forward into they will play. They still want to score tries.
Yeah,
but it's going to be definitely their key factor.
Yeah. Hey Barry, so in their win over Australia, on paper, basically Australia dominated that match. They had like 100. They They forced South Africa into 144 tackles or something like that on defense. That was a match that Australia could have stolen, but for Kurtley Beale's past 25 seconds into the match, giving the try right away. Which team is going to show up?
It's been 2 weeks in a row for the Springboks, defense. And, if you look at the statistics in both the games against the All Blacks and Australia, statistically, the Boks shouldn't have won either of those games, but they did. So, I think they're setting out their stall. They figured out that they've got to tighten up at the back if they're going to knock over big teams and be a threat next year at the World Cup. And they seem to have done that pretty well. So can the Boks do it? Well, it's always a close one. But, yeah, I believe they can. I believe they've turned the corner now under Rassie, and things are on the up. As far as Australia goes, they've had a very mixed bag at the moment. They threw everything at the Boks and couldn't quite get there on Saturday. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting one way or another. But I think the Boks will do it this weekend against the All Blacks. And, let's hope for the best, because World Rugby needs teams to start knocking over New Zealand more regularly.
Does this bend but don't break kind of philosophy, and kind of like the rope-a-dope thing, you've got a much more vaunted offense coming at you with the Kiwis, and they're going to be ticked off. They're going to have that chip on their shoulder after losing that match at home, right? So, you can sit back and play that heroic defense that they played against Australia, but this is an entirely different offense. You got Sonny Bill Williams on all cylinders, giving those offloads after having two guys catch it, tackle him. What do you do if you're the coach of South Africa right now? If you're Rassie,
if you think about that game that we won against, or what they won against,
you see that? He said we.
I heard it.
Against New Zealand, they still scored 4 tries. I think 4 tries. I think the All Blacks scored 5 tries. So you still need to score the tries, but then against a team like New Zealand, you need to also be willing to defend and not have 85. I think the Springboks had an 86% tackle completion. So, and that's what's going to be required if you ever think you're going to be. You need to get points on the board first, but you also need to make sure that they don't score tries, so or get a lot of points on you. So it's going to be it's a tough task, but it's going to. I think if the Boks win this, it can be amazing for them to go to the World Cup and think that they're the only team that have beaten the All Blacks in the recent years twice. Yeah. That would be an amazing boost for them, just mentally.
I agree with that. I just don't think Beauden Barrett's going to hit the post twice and miss 4 out of 6. So, to your point, that's, I think, one of only 5 occasions a team has won a test match conceding 6 tries. And 24, they had about 28% possession or what have you. So, lightning in a bottle is not going to strike twice. If the All Blacks come with a regular game, I think South Africa will be hard pushed. But I agree, that result is vital to retain interest. It's good to hear, Barry, it's sold out at Loftus, because the crowds elsewhere in this tournament are struggling a wee bit.
All right, let's talk about Australia briefly. Struggling, right? You've got some situations on your hand. You had the ugly incident at the end of the match where the one fan was screaming at them after the loss against Argentina. If you're on that Australian side and you see your teammate getting ripped to shreds by an allegedly overserved fan, that's a Wallabies fan, and your teammate lost his stepfather during the week, and this guy is yelling at him that you didn't play with any heart, how do you react as a teammate? You go into the stands?
Of course not. Professionals.
That's the whole thing. You need to act professionally. Unfortunately, doesn't matter where you're going to go in the world, you're always going to have people that step out of line and can't behave themselves. And that's where it becomes, while you're a professional person, and you have to always, doesn't matter how much wind you're getting received or you're going to get up to, you need to be able to treat that situation professionally. So you need to step up, rather take your mate away from that situation, help him take away, and put that person in shame. The crowd would have sorted him out anyway. So you need to help.
They were kind of in the process of doing that. But it's a lose-lose for everybody. Yeah. But they've got problems on the field. They've got a thin back line, right? The flankers, they're introducing some young guys. But again, on paper, they basically they beat the Boks on paper.
Games played on grass.
On that note, all right, let's go to predictions. Barry, in Argentina. Will Australia win?
No, I don't think so. I think Argentina have had a pretty good year this year. They beat the Boks down there. They're a tough outfit. I thought they were a little poor against New Zealand this weekend. They had New Zealand on the other hand were excellent, so it was a difficult day. I think they'll do it though. I think Argentina will knock over Australia this weekend in Buenos Aires. That's my prediction there.
What's the score?
Close. I mean, I think the Wallabies will be game, but I'm not seeing enough from them away from home to get the job done down there. Let's call it 21-17 to Argentina.
Match, Stephen. Will the Pumas go 3-3 or will they be 2-4?
Pumas, definitely. 8 points.
8-point victory.
Yes.
For the Pumas.
I'm going to be the odd one out. A little bit that I've seen Michael Cheika and the Aussies, I think it's the last game of the season. They're under a lot of pressure, and they have a strong scrum. I think they can dominate the lineouts. So the Argentinians at the moment are struggling in their set pieces. If they can make sure they get the ball into Israel Folau's hands a little bit more, Kurtley Beale don't make stupid passes, I think the Aussies can still pull it off. I think it's going to be for them like the last game, like they need to get their things back on track. And I'm going to go, the Aussies going to be a close game, but I think about 3-4 points they're going to win it down in Argentina. I'll back the Aussies.
Yeah, I'm with you, actually. Just because of what I saw with Australia and the frustration. It was turnovers, like 19 turnovers in that match. And credit the defense of the Springboks for producing those turnovers. But I think they're going to turn it around. I think they're against the wall. Cheika's got to get this win. They can't go 1-5 in this competition, right? So as much as I like what Argentina is doing, I'm saying 34-28 in favor of Australia. And I should say 28-34, shouldn't I? Yeah. Okay. Take it easy, Barry. Take it easy over there. All right. Final thoughts, gentlemen, as we are running out of time. Go ahead, Barry. You have 30 seconds.
A great rugby championship for the Springboks. Obviously, we're delighted with that historic win down in New Zealand. That doesn't come around often. Can they do it again at Loftus in South Africa? I believe they can. They just got to do exactly what they've done before, but I think offer a little bit more on offense and obviously keep that incredible defensive record intact. And the Boks will get the job done.
All right, well done on your initial foray here into Rugby Wrap-Up, by the way. Stephen, final thoughts.
Cheika loses, Cheika's gone. All Blacks by 10.
Wow.
Ouch.
Cheika's gone.
They got to make a change. They got to make a change now. And it's really about, as you say, confidence. They got to right the ship. Are they going to wait another 3-4 months, or do you give another guy a chance? Cheika, if they pull off a win, he survives.
I agree with Steve there. I think great competition. All Blacks. I think for South Africa, a big challenge is going to be team selection because Rassie have changed the team a lot over this competition. If he can pick a good team and then they can execute the game plan, the Boks definitely have a chance. All Blacks are going to be, they definitely going to pick their best team because they want to have revenge. So, but I don't want to be negative, but I'm going to go for the. I must be positive. 4 points for the Boks.
Well, you have to be positive because you're coaching 75 teams. You don't want the morale to go down across the Eastern Seaboard.
Let's give it 4 points for the Boks.
4 points for the Boks. I'm going All Blacks. They are going in there loaded for bear. It's going to be a 15-point. Sorry Barry. Sorry everybody down in South Africa, but it's going to be a 15-point All Blacks win. You just forget people like Sonny Bill Williams. The guy's still around. He's a machine. He's a wrecking ball. If he's not in it, doesn't matter. Because if he's not in it, there's somebody that's equally as good or better.
Ryan Crotty.
Yeah.
There you have it. So you just underscored my point. Thank you, Stephen, for once again backing me up. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time, unfortunately, because we could talk rugby with all these gentlemen all day long. But on that note, on behalf of Mr. Barry Herbert, Mr. Steve Lewis, and Mr. Kees Lensing, I'm Matt McCarthy at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 in New York City, talking rugby and signing off.